It's a brand new day with Mona News. It's time to have your say. She's got the scoop, the stories, all the latest trends. Mo's got the news, let's hear it. My dear friends, from politics to showbiz, no story's too small. Mo covers it all. She's got the inside call, her voice so smooth, like honey in the summer sun. With Mo on the mic, you know the news is always fun. Mornings with Mo, the best newsy news in the world. With her style so classic and her stories unfurled, from morning till night, she's got us in the know. Turn on your radio, let Mo's newsy news flow.
Good morning, everyone. It is November the 18th, and welcome. Good morning, Christine and Colorado Mountain Girl and Wolfram. Thank you for your Modly Mod duties. And let's see here. We have Tammy Bogart and Greedy Bloke. Welcome, MLS. And Debbie Blair and Alice G. Welcome, everyone. We have got a bunch of stories, but this will be a slightly shorter show, so I can get over with Baker and we can get back to the Jose Ibarra case. And I do remember today that it is Lake and Riley, not Riley Gaines, though, to be fair, those names sound, well, not really completely correct, but about the same when you're really, really tired. So our first story is that masked men broke into Windsor Castle and stole 2 vehicles. And, you know, New York Post, never change your ways. Never have a video that actually correlates to the story, you know, that you're highlighting. Just never. You stay beautiful, New York Post. Don't ever do that again. 2 masked men apparently broke into Britain's Royal Windsor Castle estate last month and stole 2 vehicles from the barn, the Sun newspaper reported Monday. King Charles and his wife Camilla were not at the estate at the time of the incident, but Prince William and his family were believed to be at Adelaide Cottage, which is part of the Windsor Castle estate, the Sun reported. So this, for all of us Americans who don't know where anything is, so apparently all this big old thing is the entire estate, and the cottage is right here, so they're not so far away, but it looks like a good 3 or 4 football pitches kind of away. So yeah, really scary when you don't know who's on, you know, your property. Not that I've ever had a compound or an estate. The men used a stolen truck to break through a security gate at night, then scaled a 6-foot fence, the paper said. Local police officers were called to report of a burglary on the Crown Estate land in Windsor, west of London, just before midnight on October 13th. Offenders entered the farm building and made off with a black Suzuki pickup and a red quad bike. They then made off towards Old Windsor Datchet area, Thames Valley police told the newspaper. Well, so you broke into a royal compound and all you got was a truck and a quad bike? Well, I'm not going to say that they're probably going to use the SAS to find you, but I think all the Commonwealths will get together to find you. No arrests have been made at this stage because the investigation is still ongoing. Windsor Castle previously faced a security scare in 2021 when authorities arrested a man with a crossbow on the grounds of the castle who said he wanted to unalive Queen Elizabeth. Well, you guys are doing a bang-up job. I'm sure that fence really worked. It's not like you had 2 years to figure out better, you know, security stuff. And then, you guys, sometimes a story comes up just as you were talking about things that happened, but I think I speak with Taylor Lautner on and everyone that yes, Taylor Lautner suggests that Twilight should have ended with Bella and Jacob getting together, screw Edward. Now, I didn't realize that, my early 20s movies would be called out on blast here lately, but here you go. Taylor Lautner jokingly suggested that his Twilight character, Jacob Black, should have ended up with Kristen Stewart's character, Bella Swan. Jacob, wolves need more than one facial expression. You would have been stuck with this chick. She's upset with you here. She's getting married here. Same facial expression. You do not want to stick with a chick whose face never changes. You will never know when you're in trouble or not. The actor took to TikTok Saturday to participate in the viral trend, which shows people are making bashful claims before accidentally flipping the cameras on themselves. Lautner's video saw the 2011 film The Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1 playing out on a flat screen TV, showing the scene where Swan marries her vampire lover, Edward Cullen. Now, I would like to just hope that all of us kind of got a little bit silly in the early, aughts, 2010s, and we're like, sparkly vampires, sure, why not? And now we all look back in shame. The Shark Boy Lava Girl star wrote in the clip, honestly, screw Edward. Bella should have ended up with Jacob. Then he jokingly flipped the camera on his face, actually shocked and afraid, with the text, oh no, oh no, oh no, written on screen. Lautner 32 left fans overjoyed as one person commented, he won this trend. And this face explains how all of us feel when we realize that we got sucked into a series with sparkly vampires. So there you go. Apparently, the entire world has decided that Twilight was bad. At least in my interpretation of this general article. But there you go. Now, there are some interesting old kind of crime stories that are coming out about now. And I think it's really interesting that these stories continue to have kind of a long life now that Netflix, I'm going to say the Netflixization, which I can't even say is a word, of true crime. A lot of these stories, a lot of these very interesting kind of true crime stories that happened in the early 90s, late 80s, are really getting fresh life. Now, as to whether, Kenneth Kimes deserves any sort of, leniency after you hear what he did, we might not figure out the same thing, but from CNN, as a young man, he went on a deadly crime spree with his domineering mother, and now he's speaking out. Irene Silverman was suspicious of the lanky young men renting an apartment in her limestone townhome in New York City. The 6'1" tenant with dark hair and green eyes barely spoke. Every time he went through the foyer and up the marble staircase, he shielded his face from the security camera. Some days he'd sneak in an older woman who spent the night and was just as evasive. Turns out Silverman had every reason to be wary. The duo was in fact a mother and son, Sante and Kenneth Kimes, and they were on the run after a rash of financial schemes and violence that stretched from Los Angeles to the Bahamas. With the police on their trail, they used aliases to move into the 82-year-old woman's apartment. A few weeks later, they started to live there. Silverman just vanished, never to be seen again. She was reported missing on July 5th, 1998, setting off a series of events that would unravel the Kimeses' twisted history of arson, fraud, and murders. Well, yeah. Interesting point. Not sure I agree, but I'm willing to hear this theory. Although this Kubrick-looking MFer, again, if you are trying to make me trust you, do not look at me like you are looking under a rock and doing the famous Kubrick angle. It makes people deeply, deeply unsettled. In a rare interview with CNN this week, Kenneth Kime called his years as his mother's accomplice a turbulent period that landed him in prison without the possibility of parole. Now at 49, Kimes spoke candidly about his family's history of violence and instability and the bad choices that turned him into a notorious killer. He remembered his wealthy father who adored him and tried to give him a normal childhood while his mother was in federal prison for keeping maids in expensive homes in three different states without paying them. Yes, his mother, Sante Kimes, was actually charged with slavery in the 1980s because she would get these women and have maids and then not pay them, basically tear up their papers. And yeah, she did that. But after she was released, she gradually ensnared her devoted son into her web of lawlessness. If you could only have an hour, or if I could only have an hour with my younger self, I would say, buddy, you have to file for emancipation from your parents, Kenneth Kimes told CNN from prison, in San Diego. You have to save yourself, and it's going to be rough because you're going to have to be very independent, learn how to make a buck. When you emancipate yourself from your parents and establish yourself, you need to go back to help them. Sante and Kenneth Kimes were 64 and 23 respectively when they moved into Silverman's large townhome on New York City's Upper East Side. Silverman, an elderly and vivacious former Radio City ballerina, had lived alone after the death of her banker husband. She had no children, but her close circle of friends constantly checked on her. Silverman had turned some of her rooms into the townhouse into rental apartments. Not so much to make money, but to have company, said Thomas Ryan, a retired detective for the New York City Police Department. In the summer of 1998, Silverman had no way of knowing that her tenant and his mysterious older companion were wanted for questioning on theft, arson, and murder charges in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and in Nassau, Bahamas. She was unaware that the pair had moved into her home with one goal, to seize her fortune and property, authorities said. But she had become mistrustful of Kimes and had spoken about evicting him before she disappeared. On the day that Silverman was reported missing, the mother and son vanished too. They were arrested in New York City later that day on unrelated warrants for bad check writing to a car dealer who sold them a green Lincoln Town Car. Police found incriminating items in the car, including force multipliers, wigs, the date grape drug, a notebook detailing their plans, and several personal items belonging to Silverman, including her keys and a forged deed to her townhouse. Investigators dug deeper, and they learned that Manny Gagarin, the name Kenneth Kimes gave to Silverman when he rented the apartment, did not exist. And they discovered Sante Kimes' exhaustive criminal record, which included a mid-1980s prison sentence for smuggling women from Central America to serve as maids in her mansions in Las Vegas, Hawaii, and San Diego, then enslaving them without pay. Police also learned that the pair was wanted in several states: in Nevada, where they were suspected of arson and insurance fraud; in California, where they were suspected of shooting a businessman in the back of the head and stashing his body in a dumpster near the Los Angeles International Airport; and in the Bahamas, where they were both suspects in a 1996 disappearance of a banker who was last seen having dinner with them in Nassau. Kent Walker, Sante Kimes' son from her first marriage, told CNN that his mother's charisma and ruthlessness made her a dangerous grifter. My mother could make every man in the room feel like the most important person on the planet, he said. But the Kimes denied that they had anything to do with Silverman's disappearance. In a 2000, interview with CNN's Larry King, Sante Kimes called their arrest a witch hunt, saying they were victims of mistaken identity. "There's no crime, there's no body," she said, fighting back tears. "I used to believe in this country. I don't believe in this country anymore." In May 2000, a New York jury convicted the Kimes of killing Silverman and sentenced them to a collective 120 years in prison 4 years later, Kenneth Kimes made a stunning revelation. He confessed to the killing in Los Angeles and implicated his mother at her trial in exchange for a plea deal that would spare them both the death penalty. I want to make it clear that I did not confess because I wanted to rat my mom out. I confessed because I was afraid of the death penalty for her and myself, Kimes told CNN. He also provided details on how they unalived Silverman, saying he became her tenant primarily so he and his mother could swindle her out of her home. Kimes told authorities that he attacked the 5-foot, 150-pound, Silverman in her bedroom while his mom turned on the TV to mask the noise. Do it, he said she told him, and then he did a not-so-gentle neck hug to Miss Silverman, stuffed her body in the car, and dumped it in a construction site in northern New Jersey. Unfortunately, her remains have never been found. Kimes said the last time he saw his mother was at a 2004 confession in a Los Angeles, courtroom. The graying convict sat slumped in a wheelchair, a far cry from the flamboyant woman who was sometimes mistaken for actress Elizabeth Taylor and who glided through rooms enveloped in the scent of gardenias, her second husband's favorite scent. So this is definitely, going to be one of those cases that I think will probably be rife for a Netflix enactment. I do remember this case. I love all sorts of true crime cases. So this is definitely a fairly big case and one that I think will probably be getting the Netflix, makeover fairly soon. I mean, you have a very glamorous woman who looked like Elizabeth Taylor, who conned a lot of people, and her weird son, who was kind of her enforcer. So while I'm not saying that Netflix is probably going to do something on this, I do notice trends, and when we start seeing a lot of these older stories being brought up as, fodder for new things, I do think that this is going to be possibly a new trend of looking at older stories, bringing them up and giving them, a little bit of shine and polish and being brought into, the zeitgeist again. Now, in what the hell, and I better, y'all, if I got this call from my kid's school and they called it horseplay, I would lose my ever-loving mind. The local media would be called, local airwaves would be called. I would be doing Facebook, lives. This is not even happening. An older bully hangs a second grader by his neck in the school bathroom, but the district shockingly calls it quote unquote horseplay, says a parent. So we are getting this from the parent's point of view, but hell to the no. A Maryland second grader was rushed to the hospital after he was quote unquote hung in the boys' bathroom by an older bully who told him basically something racist, his parents claim. The horrifying incident, which left the 7-year-old boy in the hospital with a neck contusion, unfolded Friday at C. Paul Barnhart Elementary School in Waldorf, a suburb about 23 miles southeast of Washington, D.C. Quote, "My son, who is a second grader, was hung in the boys' bathroom by a fourth grader." Now, here's the other thing that I have to caution us about. This is, of course, coming from the boy's mother. Now, I get all of us mama bears going out there and being all of the heated. But we need to have an independent investigation because the mom may not have the whole story and the school might not have the whole story, and they both have interests they would like to see. The mom would like her son to get, justice and things like that. So I'm not saying there can be good and bad motivations to want to maybe shade the investigation your way. So we need to have someone who is not affiliated with either go in and investigate this and see what actually happened. Because I feel myself getting very heated for the mom, but I also know that as a mom, I would maybe not be willing to, I would not be the most objective person to go in and get the actual facts. And if we are going to get big, hot heated and all of this, and we are going to have a leg to stand on, we need to have facts and not your feelings, not, what you think happened or how you would like to shade it. We need to have the facts so that we can actually, fix this issue. Thank you so much for becoming a member of the Church of Mo. Welcome. We have dark chocolate, sarcasm, and dark humor, but we're doing all right over here for a Monday. So this is what the mother and the son are claiming what happened. I don't know what the school is claiming other than horseplay, but we need to have an independent investigator in here. Let's see here. I received the most traumatizing phone call from a school stating that my child was being rushed to a children's hospital in NW, she claimed. I'm feeling anger and seeing red, but my son is here by the grace of God, and I will forever be thankful. Paperwork from the boy's hospital visit listed one of his injuries as a neck contusion, which was caused by blunt trauma. If you look at my son, he has marks under his eyes like blood vessels. He still had bruises on his neck from being choked. The boy's parents, who did not want to be identified, told the outlet. He is traumatized and is going to take time, the boy's mother added. This is not something he's going to get over overnight. The Charles County Public Schools confirmed that the incident chalked it up to horseplay in a letter to parents and answered the boy's family feels is not sufficient. It doesn't make sense to me. If you're horseplaying, how do you get caught on a hook? Like, we need answers. I want answers, and we won't stop until we get answers, the mother said. My son did tell me that when they were in the restroom, he said that the little boy told him, something racist, allegedly from that little boy. And that's why I feel like it's bullying, the disturbed parents said. It's not telling how many other kids that this has happened to. While the parents have since removed their son from the school, they hope that the district will step up in how they monitor students. I want to see a policy in place, at least hallway monitors. I want to know why a fourth grader is in the same restroom as a second grader. Most schools have them divided, the mother said. I feel this is very unacceptable. These are all our children. They're the future, so we need to have them protected, like we're sending our kids to school every day thinking they're safe. So I do think that, this needs to be thoroughly investigated by outside eyes who have no skin in the game as far as that. That's what I do wonder, because you see these stories pop up and then we never sort of get like the backstory or any of the investigation. So you never know how many of, these stories are actually authenticated or not. So while it's really easy to want to pull out the mama bear card, like I did at the beginning of the article, to kind of show you how easy it is to do that. This, needs to be looked at by the police. If there was a physical criminal assault, if someone was, attempted unaliving at this point, based on the way you are saying this, then you need to get the local police involved, because they will be able to involve this in theory. But that's just my idea. Who the hell knows sometimes? Just for Sal, and because of the boys explaining to me that, freezer burn on your manly bits is bad. Sometimes the internet provides a story that is just tailor-made for some weird shenanigans you talked about a bit. Okay, I take it back, New York Post. Did you just have a hot dog while you're talking about the one story you actually have that relates to the daggone story you have, and you started with a hot dog? New York Post, never change. So, winter penis could reduce the organ by up to 50%, a doctor warns. Well, us Midwest ladies are really, we drew the short end of the stick, I guess. Come on, global warming. Don't let the cold weather keep you from heating things up in the bedroom. But doctors are warning to watch out for winter schmeckle, a seasonal condition that may hinder a man's ability to perform. As the temperature drops, well, the bait and tackle recede into the body to maintain body heat, resulting in restricted blood flow. The phenomenon, which it affects men of all ages, can cause the, male bits to shrink by up to 50%, while slowed circulation makes achieving a schmeshmection too many times when the thermostat drops. Well, now call me crazy, and I know I'm not the most adventurous, but are you doing the nasty outside in the middle of a snowstorm? I mean, I would figure in the house where the heating is generally stabilized, this would not be a problem. But okay. Dr. Grant, a general practitioner and advisor with UK-based online drugstore The Independent Pharmacy, explained in a Daily Mail report that winter penis is a passing condition for most men, occurring only during frigid conditions and reversing once the temperature recovers. Uh, for the 30 million men with ED, however, the occurrence can be a little bit more difficult to manage. Grant said, due to the additional underlying issues that block blood flow to the male member. In some cases, physicians may prescribe medication to stave off mitigating effects of winter peen, especially for men with ED. While winter peen should not be worrying for most, cured simply by warming up the body, any shrinkage that outlasts the cold temperature should be noted by a doctor. Could you imagine this? And I'm trying not to but could you imagine this doctor's appointment? Well, Earl, why are you in to see me today? Well, to tell you the truth, Dr. Johnson, you know, I did check it for signs, but my little twig and berries can't handle anything other than, 40 degrees Celsius. All jokes aside, though, any shrinkage that does outlast cold temperatures could, point to additional health concerns, such as cardiovascular disease, maybe poor circulation. So, as much as I joke and giggle, if you are experiencing, these kind of issues for longer than it is cold outside, then maybe go talk to your doctor. And guys, I will struggle to have a little bit more of, you know, grace for you guys because I understand that it's not very comfy to talk about all these, downstairs issues. But can I tell you, as a lady, where every single one of my appointments starts with embarrassing downstairs issues and possibly stirrups if I'm super de duper unlucky, just go tell your doctor about your damn schmeckle. Every single female doctor's appointment starts with like, well, when did you last do this? Are you having any weird, sort of things going on down there? And get in the stirrup. It's time for your pap smear. And you're like, where do I get to go where I can complain about having a cold wiener? Again, guys, us ladies, we are on your side. We want you to be healthy, but if you're going to complain about how embarrassing it is to talk about my downstairs parts, uh, you're not going to find enough, sympathy because literally every doctor's appointment starts with, what are your embarrassing symptoms about your downstairs parts? And you're like, I was just here to ask about possibly, getting healthier. Yep, but we have to ask about your lady bits. Now, what are you doing with those now? No, I was just asking if you had like better nutrition ideas. Yes, but have you answered the questions about your lady bits? Well, I don't see how one is connected to. Nope, must know. So, unfortunately, men, you might not find women as, sympathetic to you having to discuss something embarrassing to your doctor. Because even if everything is all righty-o, we still have to discuss embarrassing stuff to our doctors. In what the actual Hades is going on here? Virginia, how does this happen? Well, apparently it happened in California, but still. A Virginia woman is arrested after impersonating a nurse and working at multiple California hospitals. Now, call me cray cray, but I thought there was supposed to be like licensing boards and you can just, put in the little number of your license and then doctors would know, or at least hospitals would know. But a Virginia woman who has allegedly been posing as a nurse and treating patients at several Southern California hospitals has been arrested after a months-long investigation, according to Burbank police. Amanda Leanne Porter, 44, was arrested after investigation revealed that she was impersonating a real registered nurse who lived out of state and had been working at Los Angeles County hospitals without a license. Well, that makes me feel comfortable. In May 2024, Burbank's police received a report about a woman who allegedly impersonated a registered nurse at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center. Over the next few months, investigators were able to identify the woman as Porter, who applied for and obtained the nursing position at St. Joseph's Medical Center. Police said Porter oversaw approximately 60 patients that came under her care between April 8th and May 8th. By the time Porter was terminated, police say she had received 2 paychecks for the time she was fraudulently employed. Porter does not hold a nursing license and is on federal probation for fraud committed in the state of Virginia. Now, during the investigation, detectives also learned that Porter continued to obtain employment with various LA hospitals using a variety of false identities. It is believed that Porter may have been committing additional similar offenses in Southern California over the past year, the police said in a news release. On November 7th, Burbank police arrested Porter in connection with an arrest warrant after she bonded out of Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department custody for a similar violation she allegedly committed at Henry Mayo Newhall Hospital in Santa Clarita. Charges for identity theft, false impersonation, and grand theft were held against Porter 5 days later. Then she was arraigned on November 13th and is being held without bail. Providence St. Joseph Medical Center acknowledged the investigation and released the following statement on Fox 11 LA about the arrest. Providence St. Joseph Medical Center appreciates the diligence of Burbank police detectives in apprehending Amanda Porter, who was hired last spring by the hospital as a nurse, but was promptly terminated once it was determined that her nursing credentials had been falsified, the statement read. Hospital officials promptly notified the appropriate state and local authorities, as well as each patient for whom she had provided care. Providence St. Joseph is committed to quality and safety to ensure the best possible care for our patients. Now, call me crazy, but they don't check. I mean, Kay makes a good point that hospitals are so desperate for nurses, they don't check. I know of a nurse family member who has been repeatedly fired for stealing pharmaceuticals, still working and making, great money. Yikes. That is incredibly scary because you go to the hospital and if you go for your child, is one of the most scary, out of control times you feel, because you're not a doctor. Your child is bleeding. They need stitches. You don't know how to do those. You get a little, icky about blood. So to have someone who's just knowingly going in and exposing these loopholes or these failures, and then honest to God working with patients, it's incredibly terrifying. Now, she was a new hire, and during her orientation phase, at least in the St. Joseph's Medical Care Center, kind of thing. So she was still partnered with a training nurse and she was not, on her own, so they tell us. But this is incredibly creepy. It seems like she was doing the same thing in Virginia and now she moved over to, California. It's incredibly scary and goodness gracious, I hope that we can figure out if more people are doing this because now I'm terrified. In a story I've been wanting to do an update on and they finally updated it, but I know we all saw, or I know I covered the military horse in London who was this white majestic horse who had, it looked like a lot of blood running down its, I don't know what you call a horse necular slash, pecular area, but around the flanks and down the neck. I'm sure there's like a real word for it. I think quiver is a word for some part of a horse. But hopefully, you know, I've been waiting for to hear that this horse was, doing okay, and it sounds like they finally are. So the military horse that drenched in its own blood as it ran through London is returned to duty. The white military horse that galloped through central London, drenched in blood after bolting with other horses from routine exercises this spring, has returned home after more than 6 months of recovery, a charity announced Friday. Vida was one of 5 horses that bolted near Buckingham Palace on April 24th after becoming spooked by the cacophony of noises coming from a nearby construction site and ran for several miles through the city during a morning rush hour. 3 of 4 soldiers thrown from their steeds were hospitalized, though the British Army said that they were expected to return to duty. 3 of the horses quickly returned to service, but Vida, who was treated for lacerations and was one of 2 horses that required operations after colliding with vehicles during the stampede. Quaker, a black horse that dashed alongside Vida and was sideswiped by a taxi as it ran a red light and turned into oncoming traffic, is the only horse that has still not returned to the regiment. The 3 other horses that made a getaway, Tennyson, Trojan, and Vanquish, were returned to service in time to participate in the birthday for King Charles III. So I'm glad that Vida is doing okay. I'm glad that, she is back because I think it was one of the more, which is odd, but it was one of the more horrifying pictures that kind of came out of 2024. So I'm really glad that, she is doing better, that the other horses are being well taken care of, because it was a very kind of unsettling photo, at least for me. So I'm glad she's doing better. In I'm going to need the owner, operators, and attendants of Lord Chippy to please gather to the front. We are going to need to light this puppy up. In hypocrisy to end all hypocrisy, a former Department of Child, and Families employer uh, locked up her daughter in the garage and quote unquote severely abused the teen before unaliving her. So, this woman was responsible for taking apart families, for judging other families for being all of the sus, and yet she does this. Deputies in Sebring, Florida, were called to a horrific crime scene on Friday that no amount of law enforcement experience could have ever prepared them for, according to police officials. Diane Natasha Mack, a 34-year-old former Florida Department of Children and Families employee who worked as a guardian ad litem, or GAL, had phoned the police to report the death of her 13-year-old adopted daughter after finding her quote-unquote lying unresponsive on a floor at their home in Sunnan Lake of Sebring Golf Course and Recreation Community early Friday at 12:19 a.m. per Highland County Sheriff's Office. What authorities discovered there, according to Highlands County Sheriff Paul Blackman, they soon won't forget. Quote, "This is one of the most disturbing crime scenes I have encountered in more than 30 years of law enforcement," Blackman said on Friday in a sheriff's office video announcing Miss Mack's arrest on murder and child charges. "There are no words I can say that truly convey the nightmare this child's life must have been." Deputies allegedly found Mac's daughter dead inside her home, wearing nothing but a diaper and showing clear signs of abuse and neglect, Blackman said. Mac initially told investigators she found the girl on Thursday morning, then changed her time of discovery to around 3 p.m. She was extremely emaciated and obviously malnourished, Blackman said of Mac's daughter. Her body was covered in wounds in all stages of healing, including open lacerations that were clearly recently suffered. Upon further investigation, deputies found evidence indicating that the girl, who was homeschooled, had been locked up in the garage before her death, according to the sheriff's office. "We don't yet know how long she had been there, but it appears she was secured to the garage door and monitored from inside the home by a security camera that was mounted inside the garage," Blackman said. With her child lying passed away on the floor, according to Blackman, police alleged that Mac used pool chlorine to try to destroy evidence in the garage before calling 911. She also allegedly took the time to drive at least 4 other children who were living at the home with her to a residence in Titusville before phoning the police. Mac was arrested and charged with first-degree murder while engaging in aggravated CA, as well as aggravated CA, kidnapping and destroying evidence. "Parents have a duty to love our children and make sure no harm comes their way," Blackman said. "To see a child treated this way is not only heartbreaking, it's infuriating. What makes it even more appalling is that this suspect is a former employee of not only the Department of Children and Families, but also worked as a guardian ad litem. That's someone whose job it is to look after the welfare of children, in legal cases. Could treat their own child in this manner is simply beyond belief." Mac is being held without bail in Highlands County Jail, and I hope she continues to be being held without bail in that jail. I didn't mean to rhyme, but again, these are the people that, judge other families and their fitness, and we are finding more and more that they have skeletons in their closet that are more monstrous than the people they are adjudicating of being poor parents. And in our final story, because, we need something to end with a good little, bit of goodness. After kind of all the bad stories that we sometimes hear, here is a great one. A 98-year-old Rhode Island man finally gets his high school diploma. A 98-year-old World War II veteran was presented with a diploma from Rhode Island High School in a special ceremony. Anthony Simone, a lifelong Rhode Islander, dropped out of high school at the age of 16 to help support his family and enlist in the U.S. Army to fight in World War II at the age of 17. Simone, who fought in the Battle of the Bulge, earned his GED after arriving back in the United States after the war, but he now has an official high school diploma courtesy of Cranston High School East. "I never expected to be honored like this," Simone told WJR TV. The ceremony was organized by Simone's granddaughter, who teaches at an elementary school in Cranston. So, absolutely, thank you, sir, so much for, your service, your protection of your family, and as a 17-year-old for fighting some of the, biggest battles in our history and coming back home and living a fulfilled and wonderful life. And I'm glad that we got to, it's simple things like this that I think, giving back to the generation that gave so much to us it's really nice to see that. It's nice to see that this man who had pride, enough to go fight for our country and give up maybe some of the things that us young people don't have to give up now. Never have to give up. In fact, we suffer from an overabundance of choice and freedom sometimes to choose all ridiculousness. It is amazing to see, these heroes get recognition, even if it's, really late. I enjoy seeing it. I am going to end here for today. As when we're on trial, it's going to be slightly shorter mornings with Mo, so I can get you guys over to Baker and get the day started in the Jose Ibarra case. So I will see you over there. I'm going to kick y'all out of here. And then we will get on to the Jose Ibarra case and we'll see you over there. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for being a part of this, for joining, and I will see you right over there in just a minute or so. Bye, guys.